George McLaughlin, who's a guidance counselor at Central Falls, at least for now, we should say, and also Alice Webb, who has 4 children who have gone to the high school. 3 are still there. And Alice, I read that you went to the school yourself, actually, your kids too, obviously, and the kind of results we just heard, that has got to concern you as a parent, doesn't it?
I know that the teachers have done a wonderful job. You cannot blame the teachers for the situation.
Why not? Who do you blame?
I blame the absenteeism, the family, the home life is very challenging in this city, the language barrier, the absenteeism, the tardiness. You really can't fix some of those problems, and you certainly can't blame it on the teachers.
But they have been fixed or at least improved more than where your school is and other places. You don't feel like the administrators needed to do something pretty drastic here, given how bad those scores were and the failure rates?
No, because we implemented a portfolio program and various other things that we did that we just need some more time on improving, but there are some things that we still need to work on, but the teachers are not to blame. They give 110%. They have a personal relationship with the students. The students love their teachers.
George, you and your wife, I understand she's a chemistry teacher, are both going to lose your jobs at the end of the year. At least it looks that way for now. Obviously, I'm guessing you think that's unfair, but you would argue that the teachers aren't at least partly responsible?
Well, first I would argue that many of the statistical circus that has been bandied about by management is really unfair to us. 50% of our students do not fail all their classes. I'm a guidance counselor. I have it from my computer.
Okay, but I'm just, my reporter got, I have those numbers too, but if I can just say this, and then you're certainly welcome to dispute these numbers, but they came directly from the school district. Our reporter spoke directly with the school district and got those numbers from them, that 400 are failing every single subject.
Good. Well, if I were a coal miner and you said they came directly from the coal barons, I could contest it. I'm a guidance counselor. I deal with all those failures every day. We have
So who do you blame for this? You don't. What do you think the problem is?
I don't think the truth is being told. 4.5% of our students are failing all their classes, not 50. 4.5. 13.5 are failing half of their classes. We have 22% of our students who are on the honor roll. So, it's one thing in fair play for us to argue about things, but when you get into this statistical circus, lots of things are thrown out, and they become fact after they're repeated 3 or 4 times.
So let me just ask you, though, as Randy pointed out, just kind of where, because you're right, there is a lot of finger pointing back and forth. Just to clarify here, were the teachers willing to do all the extra work they were called upon in order to improve the school? Randy mentioned it in her piece a moment ago, which is a longer school day, that's 7 hours. I think most of us work at least 7 hours a day. Tutoring the students weekly, having lunch with the students, 90-minute meetings to discuss education and some paid development during the summer. None of that sounds to me like to be all that unreasonable.
Right. Well, we never got to the point where that was discussed. We never got to the point where we talked about that or any compensation or anything else, as far as I know.
Well, your union people did, right?
Yeah, but that was never, none of this was put in writing that said, we're going to give you stability in the school. We have a contract until the end of June after this. So all we wanted was job security. Everybody who's there, I have 32 years in education, I have 15 years in this school, okay? To say that I might be reevaluated after 32 years, 5 teaching certificates and 3 degrees.
I'm not questioning any of that, but I think as a parent or anybody who was looking at the school and would see these kind of failure rates, it doesn't matter how much experience I think any of the teachers have if the students aren't performing, and there has to be some accountability ultimately.
Well, that's obviously a concern to every parent and to every student and to every citizen in a community. The difference is we have the highest percentage of transient students in our state. We have the highest percentage of ESL students, and we have the second highest number of special ed students. So to compare us to Greenwich, Connecticut or Shaker Heights, Ohio is a little ridiculous in a way.
All right.
Compare us to the other communities that are like us, and that would be fair. But, you know, I'm not here to argue those points. I'm here to say, let's go back to the negotiating table. Let's go back, and as far as I know, management walked away from it. Let's stop pointing fingers and go back to the negotiating table. And Central Falls has a great, proud tradition, including Mrs. Webb and including our former governor, Lincoln Almond.
All right.
You know, let's not break that tradition and throw everybody out in the street.
George McLaughlin and Alice Webb, appreciate you both joining us tonight. Thanks very much. I do want to bring in CNN's education contributor, Steve Perry, to sort of put this in a bigger picture context for us. And Steve, just give me your reaction to what you just heard there from George especially, who said, you know, that you can't compare his community to places like Greenwich, Connecticut, where they have more money and they don't have the same population or the same challenges.
Mr. McLaughlin has some nerve. Here is a man who's being paid to educate in a school that has failed 93% of its children. They're not being compared to Greenwich. They're being compared to other communities within their state. They're being compared to individuals who've taken the same
just let me ask you about the
exam.
93%, because that's not what I have. Where do you get that number?
93% of the students have failed the state's math examination. 93%. And that's down from 97% the year before. What Mr. McLaughlin made clear is that he is interested in himself. He wants to make sure he has job security. The audacity to ask for job security at a fail rate such as that, he thinks he should be guaranteed a job after that? This is a great day in public education. This is a time when the communities have taken back their schools.
And let me just say, I'm wishing that the two of you could have had this debate, but we couldn't get him to go on with you, unfortunately, so that I'm having to sort of play the role of devil's advocate here with everybody. But let me ask you about the argument that we heard him make, along with Mrs. Webb, that you know they're fighting challenges like poverty, a transient population where many of the kids don't speak English. Is that not a valid argument?
No, it's not a valid argument. And in fact, if that's the case, if what he's saying is he and his fellow teachers cannot educate that population because of the limitations, we understand, we forgive you, good luck in your new job. If you can't educate the population you're being paid to educate, then why should we hold you in the position? It's the reason why they don't want to have this discussion is because the truth is making its way to the surface. It's not just Central Falls, however. All over the country, there are schools in which students are performing so poorly and teachers are being paid well. We're talking about teachers that are making almost $80,000 a year for working 8 months a year and 6.5 hours a day, and they think it's okay that they talk about more compensation? For what?
Yeah, these teachers at the school, just to be clear, we're making $72,000 a year. Steve, we got to end it there. Steve Perry, thank you for your time tonight, and our previous guest. Again, I wish we could have had you all on together. We'll push harder for that next time. Many thanks to everybody.